I think there have been two classes till now. So what are the topics covered? Okay, algorithm analysis, just the basics of introduction. Okay, is the time complexity discussed in the class yet? Okay, so don't worry about it. Anyhow, this is the first lab. So what we'll do in this lab is we are going to look at a simple puzzle and we'll try to solve it with the help of programming. I'll just share my screen with you. Give me a moment. Okay. So we are going to deal with this problem which is known as the counterfeit coin riddle. Is anyone aware with what this riddle is? Anyone? So you can unmute yourself and give an answer. Okay. So I think nobody is aware with it. So let me state the riddle for you. So it's a classic puzzle problem. Assume you as an engineering student, assume you go to this new city and this city is led by an emperor. So instead of democracy, there is one emperor there who rules this entire city, and you are not comfortable with the tax laws the emperor has imposed on the state. Uh, so you oppose it, and consequently, the emperor puts you in prison out of his anger. So you are spending your time in the prison now. One fine day, this emperor faces a problem, and since he knows that you are a smart engineering student, he calls you to solve his problem. So the problem is like this: in this city, the tax is collected in the form of gold coins. So all the, what I would say, citizens in the cities give these deposit these gold coins as tax. And what one of the citizens has done, he has deposited a fake coin. So this fake coin looks exactly like the other gold coins. So it's completely identical. So by just looking at it, you can't identify it. But the thing is, it is lighter than your other gold coins, right? Now, there are around 1 million coins in this treasure, and the emperor wants to find out which is this counterfeit coin, which is lighter than the rest of the coins. So how can he solve this problem? Now, the emperor doesn't have a weighing machine because of there might be several reasons for this. What we have is 1 million coins and a balanced scale. So what you can do is you can measure some coins together. You can put some on the left side of the scale, some in the right side of the scale, and you can use this balanced scale as many number of times as you want. With all such comparisons, what you want to do is figure out which is the counterfeit coin. And the emperor tells you, see, you use this scale, but since there is some cost associated with using this scale, so you'll have to stay in the prison the number of times you use the scale. So the objective is you have to use this scale as minimum times as you can, and you have to figure out which is the counterfeit coin. So I'm giving you 2 minutes to think about it. So, and after that, we'll take it further. So let's make this session an interactive one, and let's look at various solutions of it. Okay. Any answers? So now you can unmute yourself and answer this question. So your first programming assignment is based on the problem and you should understand the problem clearly. Is the problem clear? Okay, Vaibhav, can you just unmute yourself and explain what is not clear? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll explain it once again and you let me know which part of it is not clear. So as of now, it's a simple puzzle I'm asking you. And the puzzle is all about you have around 1 million coins which are kept together. All these coins are completely identical. They looks the same, and among these coins there is one coin which is your counterfeit coin, which is lighter than your remaining coins. So let's say every coin weighs 10 grams, so there might be one coin which looks exactly like the remaining coins but its weight will be 5 grams, but you can't tell it. Or let's say between 10 and 5 you can differentiate it with your hand. Let's say it's 9 grams, so all the coins there are of 10 grams and there is one coin which is of 9 grams, and there are 1 million coins with you. What you have to do is you have to figure out which is this counterfeit coin which is just 9 gram in weight. And in order to do so, what you are given is a balanced scale. So you might have seen such kind of a scale with the vegetable vendors which they use to weigh the things. So what you can do is you can put some coins on the left side of the scale, some coins on the right side of the scale, and compare them. You can even keep one coin on the left, one coin on the right, and the scale will tell you which side is lighter and which side is heavier. So using this scale, you have to figure out which is your counterfeit coin, which is 9 grams in weight. Is it clear now? If it's not clear, please unmute yourself and we can go over the problem again.
Yes, ma'am, it's clear now.
Okay. So any solution for this? Any simple solution which comes to your mind? How can one do this?
Ma'am, we can do one thing. Ma'am, it may go long, but we can do one thing. We can first divide it into half, okay? We can divide the number of coins into half and put it on the either side. Ma'am,
Okay.
as we see the part which goes unbalanced or which has a less weight, we again take that part and we again divide into half, ma'am. So by dividing in half and half and half, we can reach till a point where we can say there is a one fake coin.
Perfect. So Vaibhav has given a near optimal solution for this problem. So what I'll do is we'll go over the simplest solution first. So our aim is to figure out which is your counterfeit coin. So let's say, first of all, we start with a linear comparison. So I'm going with the simplest solution because in addition to understanding the solution to this problem, we also have to implement it. So what one can do in the linear comparison, you just keep your first coin on the left side of the scale. So I keep one coin here. I keep the second coin on the right hand side of the scale. You compare the two. If any one of them is lighter, your work is done. Otherwise, what you will do, replace this second coin here with the third one, again compare, again replace it with the fourth one, so on and so forth. And I do this for 1 million coins. So for how many years will one have to stay in prison if he uses such a technique? So I'm comparing the coins one by one in a linear fashion. So how many comparisons will I make? Yeah, so it's correct, lifetime. So there will be, what will be the exact number of comparisons? For sure, it will be a lifetime for a human being, definitely. Exactly. So it will be 1 million minus 1 comparisons. Okay. Now let's make this solution a little bit more smarter. Now my friend comes to me and says that since you have this scale, why don't you use it judiciously? So what I'm going to do now, we are going to do a pairwise comparison. So what we do in a pairwise comparison, you put first coin on the left, second coin on the right, and you compare them. If one of them is lighter, we are done. Now, if none of them is lighter, we know that both of these coins are the standard ones. So because in this entire treasure, we are having just one counterfeit coin. So now if the counterfeit coin is neither the first coin nor the second one, we'll discard both of these coins and then put the third and fourth coin, compare them. Similarly, we'll keep fifth and sixth coin and compare them. We'll go in this fashion. So how many comparisons? Perfect. So it's 500,000 comparisons because for every two coins, we are having one comparison. Perfect. Okay. Next, what we do, let's compare four coins at once. We can do it like this. Let me keep two coins on the left side and two coins on the right side. So I have first four coins which are being compared. So if the left side or right side both are equal, I can take next two pairs. Otherwise, what we'll do? If any one side is lighter, so I know that among which two coins can the one be a counterfeit coin, and then we can compare both of those coins. So we are keeping two coins on the left side, two coins on the right side and comparing them. So the scale is using four coins at once. How many comparisons? Can you tell me the exact number of comparisons? Is it going to be 1 million by 4, which is 250,000, or something else? Exactly. So in the worst case, it's going to be 2,500,000 plus 1. Why that plus 1? Because we are comparing these four coins. So assume that your counterfeit coin is the last coin. So you have made 250,000 comparisons. In the last comparison, you figure out that these are the two coins among which one is the counterfeit coin. Now you also need to compare both of these coins together. So once you know, once you find a lighter side, since each side now have two coins each, so for finding out which is the counterfeit coin between both of these, you need one more comparison. Okay. What if we compare six coins at once? Let me keep three coins on the left side and three coins on the right side. Okay, so Vaibhav says it is 1 million by 6 plus 2. 1 million by 6 plus 2. Okay. Does anybody has another answer, a different answer, or everyone has the same answer? Can you make it 1 million by 6 plus 1? Okay. So can you make this plus 2 as plus 1? So your end resultant will be, you will be having three coins together, and you know among these three coins, one is the counterfeit coin. Now, do you need two comparisons to figure out which is the counterfeit coin? Or can you do it in lesser? Can you do it in just one comparison? Three. So the question is, we have three coins. Now we have boiled down to this question. We have done these 250,000 comparisons to figure out the three coins among which one is the counterfeit coin. Okay, let me type here. Can you see what I'm typing here? So I have three coins on the left and three coins on the right. So this is my left side and this is my right side, and we are comparing both of these three coins together. And Yes, in case if the first comparison contains a counterfeit coin, then +1 or +2. What if I tell you in every case you can do it in just one comparison? So in the worst case, what happens when you do this last comparison, which is your 1 million by 6th comparison? So you have 3 coins here and 3 coins here, and you figure out that these 3 coins are those in which one is the counterfeit coin. So now we have 3 coins and we have to compare these and figure out which is the counterfeit coin. So what you can do it is keep one coin on the left side of the scale, one on the right side of the scale, and one coin you have outside the scale. Now you can see all the cases here. So if both of these, let's say one of these is lighter, the left side or the right side, if one of the sides is lighter, then you can tell the answer, which is the counterfeit coin. And if none of these is lighter, that is if both the sides are equal, then definitely the coin which is staying outside, which is outside is your counterfeit coin. So in the case where we have 6 coins at once, it becomes what? 1 million by 6 plus 1, right? Okay. So I have written some approximate numbers here. So it's approximately this number which is written here. But in all of the cases, what is happening? If we see it on a bigger picture, in all of the cases, the number of comparisons required is very high. So you'll end up spending your lifetime in prison. Now, let us see the approach which Vaibhav told us before. So the approach was, let's compare as many coins as possible at once. Why just compare 4 coins or 6 coins at once? Let's put all the coins in the weighing machine. Let's divide them into half and put them in the weighing machine. So I have 1 million coins. What we can do is keep 500,000 on the left side, 500,000 on the right hand side. What will happen? One side will definitely be lighter than the other, the side which is having the counterfeit coin. So you discard these 500,000 coins at once, pick these 500,000 coins, and again you split them equally between your left side and the right side. Again, one of the sides will be lighter. You again pick that side, again divide it into 2 halves, keep one on the left, one on the right, and you keep repeating this process. So every time the number of coins you have to compare keeps dividing by half. Okay, so what is happening? How many comparisons are you making here? Can you do a quick mathematics and tell me how many comparisons? You can type or you can unmute yourself and speak also. Anyone? Okay, so I mean, Vishal, you mean log base 2 of 1 million, right? So if there are, let's say, 8 coins, you can do it in 3 weighings. If there are 16 coins, you can do it in 4 weighings. If there are 32 coins, you can do it in 5 weighings. So because that every time this number is getting divided by 2, you'll end up doing it in log 2 of 1 million time. And what is that? What is log 2 of 1 million? If anyone has a calculator, can you quickly do it? You can also type it on Google and see what is log 2 of 1 million. This is base 2, right? Why? So this should be clear to you. This is base 2. This is base 2 because every time your number is getting divided by 2. So the number of steps here will be log base 2 of n. Because if there were, let's say, 8 coins here, first you'll divide it into 4, 4, and then it will be 2, 2, and then it will be 1, 1. So a total of 3 steps. Okay. Yes, Vishal, you are correct. So it's almost 19 point something, and let's say it's just 20 years. So all the way from 166,000 comparisons, we came down to just 20 years. Okay, so this was the case when we were dividing the coins in half and half and doing it, and it seems to be an optimal approach. Do you think it is the optimal approach, or can we do better than this? Do you think I can reduce this 20 all the more now? Okay, Asrit says no. Anyone, do you think we can reduce this number all the way from 20 down? Maybe is a diplomatic answer. I won't consider it. If it is maybe, you might want to give me some intuition of how it might be reduced. Okay, so the answer to this question is yes, it can be reduced and you can bring it all the more down to 13. And the way how to do this, you'll see it in your programming assignment. So this is your first programming assignment. Okay, Anirudh, now this is a computer science lab. We are not going to the physics part of it, though it's a very good solution. But what we are given is just a weighing scale. We do not have water around. We are assuming that. Okay, so this is the first problem which you have to code in this data structures lab. You have to implement 3 algorithms for this. 2 of them we have discussed them already. One approach is the one which brings this answer to 13, and you need to read it up. You will find it the solution in your programming assignment. Okay. So what do you think should be the input and output for such a problem? Now we have picked a problem. Uh, so this number of coins need not be 1 million. It can be a complicated number, and I might not be willing to always do maths of it. I want to write a code for this, and I want the code to solve it for me. So think from the perspective of C. Assume that I want to put this entire situation in front of a computer, and I want this computer to solve this problem for me. What all should be the input and output? Anyone? You need to put your thinking hats on. So the input to you is a treasure and your weighing scale. How do you represent them as an input in a, how do you represent them as an input to a computer? It should be a for loop if condition. Okay, Vaibhav, as of now, we are just talking about the input. How should I input to this code? We'll soon look into the solution. Okay, the treasure is stored in a variable. Good. So we can give a treasure as a variable to my program. 1 million can be given as a string. Okay. A total number 1 million and a division, that is by 2. Okay. So what is the input? Does it need to be 1 million? Means I know I have this treasure in which it has some coins, and let me put it this way, the number of coins need not be 1 million. It can be any number of coins, and among all those coins, all the coins have some weight, and out of those there is a coin whose weight is lesser. So how do I give this entire thing as a variable to my program? So the program to my code is all these coins with their weights. Can it be given in the form of an array? Where every element of the array represents the weight of a coin. So that's how we are going to do it. The input to your program will be, okay, you can make it a 2D array or 3D array, but for the time being, let's deal with just one dimensional array. So we are going to give the input in the form of a 1D array where every element, so how will 1D capture it? So what will be the index? Each index location will be your coin number. So let's say I have 10 coins. So I'll have an array of size 10 where the 0th location is the 0th coin with its weight. First location is the first coin and the element is its weight, so on and so forth. So that is my array. And now for solving this problem, you just have to use a balance scale. So I'll come to that. So in most of your labs, we are going to take the input with the help of command line arguments. Are you all aware with what is a command line argument? Okay, so what are the different ways in which you give input to your programs? Assume I'm writing a C program and the program needs some input from the user. So what are the different ways? Okay, scanf is the typical way we give an input to a program. We can give it from a file also, using some file handling operations. And the third way, okay, so you can use all these functions, get s, get c, get ch. I'll explain this to you, command line arguments. Before that, do you know from where does the execution of your program start? If I have written a C program and I execute it, where will my control go? From where will the execution of this program start? It will start from the main function. Perfect. Does your main function has any arguments or parameters? Have you ever used any arguments or parameters with the main function? Okay, so this part we need to revisit. Actually, your main function itself can have certain parameters and arguments. So let me show them to you. I'll just try to do some live coding so that it becomes all the more clear. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Okay, so can you see this editor screen? Perfect. So what should be my first line? So we include our standard file. So I'm going to include my standard file. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to take an as input from the user an array, right? That's all. I want to input an array from the user and I do not want to use any scanf function. I do not want to use any file. So what I want to do while I execute the program, so to execute the program, we use the command dot slash a dot out. So in front of that execution, I want to provide the parameters there itself. So your main function also can be given certain parameters or arguments. So I'm going to include two arguments in your main function. So one is an integer and one is an array of strings, right? Okay. I'm just going to write a code in front of you and make you predict its output. Okay. Any predictions? What will be the output of this program?
Integer print RPS.
The array I input as a user? Think about it. Okay, can you now see this screen where I'm going to compile this code? Let me compile this code. What is the error here? Okay. I'm just going to execute this code like this. I'm just going to do ./a.out. And what this program is doing, it is printing the value of this here int args. So yes, your main function is called by the operating system. So when the main function is called, there are certain things which are passed as parameters to this main function. So actually you can collect those and use them in your program. So it's like, see, when we call some other function from main, we can pass certain values to that function and use those values there. So similarly, when your operating system calls this main function, there are certain things the operating system passes to this main function. So I've written two things here. One is your int args. So it's actually the number of arguments you have provided. And these are the arguments which you have provided to your main function. So here currently I've actually not providing anything to the main function, right? So when I execute it, what should be the output? So I'm printing the value of this args since it's an integer value. So what this integer value should be? Yes, it is 1. Okay, Shrikant, why it is 1? Actually, I'm not passing any argument here, right? So I can pass certain arguments here. So see, I'm passing certain arguments here to the main function. See, it still executes and it shows me a value of 5. You can actually write anything and still execute this program here. Okay, I'm not writing anything here and I press an enter. It shows me 1 argument. What is this 1 argument? Okay, so by default, whenever you execute this program, your name of the file is first argument. Let us see what is the value of this first argument. So all these arguments which we are providing to the main function are stored in this array and I want to see its value. So since these are character strings, I use a %s and I try to see the value of argv0, which is my first argument, which is stored in this array. And let's compile this code again and let's execute it. So this 1 is the value of args and that one parameter is actually nothing but your ./a.out, the file you are compiling. Let me put some \n here. Okay, let me pass this, sorry, let me execute this function this way. Let me pass this as first argument, this as second argument. Can you predict the output now? So the output is 3, perfect. Yes. Harsh. So the value of ARGS in this case will be 3 because these two are the arguments which you have provided, and this is taken as an implicit argument by your program. So you will see here a 3 and your first argument is still your file name, which is ./a.out. Okay, now I'm going to change it slightly. I'm going to look at the value of what is your first argument. By first argument, it's actually second argument, means what is there at the index 1 of this array. Okay. What do you think will be the output now? I'm just commenting this line for now. Uh, Let me compile it again. Okay. What do you think will be the output to this now? So what I'm doing now is I'm printing the value of ARGB1. I hope my screens are properly visible to you when I'm switching between the code and the terminal. Oh, that's a problem in that case. So which screen are you able to see? Are you consistently seeing just the terminal? Oof. Okay, let me try changing it. Does anyone has an idea how do I share this entire of my screen on Zoom? So when I click on the sharing option, it shows me different windows and asks me which one I want to share. So I want to share this entire screen here. Okay, can you now see me switching between different screens? Perfect. Okay. So this is your code here. What we are doing is we have two arguments to the main function. One is your integer, one is your array of strings. And what I'm printing here is the value of your element at the index 1 in this array, which is actually your second element. And I'm trying to, I have compiled this code and here I'm executing it with ./a.out 8. So what do you predict will be the output? Okay, perfect. So the output is 8. Okay. What if I just execute it like this without providing any argument? What do you think will be the output in that case? So I'm actually not providing it any second argument. First argument is by default this dot slash a dot out. Second argument I'm not providing it, but I'm still printing the value of this second argument here. So when I look at it, it shows me segmentation fault because there is no second element here, right? And it tries to access it, which returns an error. Execution time error, definitely not the compilation time error. Okay, now what do I want is I want to modify this code and I want to pass it an array as an argument. So this will be used for your current programming assignment also. So whenever I'll be running your code, my first argument will be the number of elements in the array, let's say 5, followed by each individual element. So let's say 1, 7, 8, 2, 3. So this is the way we'll be executing your codes, right? And in this way, you can also, for your current programming question, you can give the input which is your treasure. So assume your treasure has 10 coins. So 10 because I have 10 coins followed by the weight of each coin, which can be, let's say, first 9 entries are 3 and then I have a 1, which is your counterfeit coin. So such an input will be there for your current programming assignment. Now I want to write a code for this where I have an array. I give it size as the first argument followed by what are the elements of this array. So how do I take it input to an array? Let's look at that. Can anyone help me here? So first we need to declare an array. So let's say I have this array which can hold at maximum 100 entries. And I have a value integer n, which is the size of the array, right? So n is the size of the array here. Can you tell me what should I write here? N is argv. Argv of what? What should I type here? Perfect. So I type here a 1 because my 0th argument is your program name. This first argument is the value of n, which is the size of my array. And now I want to see the value of this argv1, which is an integer. So I type a %d here followed by argv1. And now let's just try to compile and run this code. Okay, so it shows me some warnings. It says that I'm trying to convert a char star into an int, and it says me that format %d expects argument of type int, right? So what goes wrong here? So as I told you, what this argv is having, it's considering all your arguments as strings. So even this let's say whatever argument we are passing here at the location 1, that's also considered as a string, right? So what we need to do, so whenever you are giving an integer input, you need to convert that string into an integer. So for that we have a direct function, which is a function called a to I, ascii to integer. So I'm going to apply that function here. So what this will do, it will take argv1, which is a string, and it will convert it into an integer. And in order to use a to I function, I need to include a different library here, which is this one, standard library. Again, let's compile this code. Okay, it still shows me an error. So what I can do, instead of, since I've stored this value of argv1 in n, I write a n here. If I still write a argv1 here without typecasting, it will create a problem. And let me say it's an array of 2. First element is 1 and second element is 3. So it shows me that I have 2 elements in my array. Perfect. Next, it's easy to Now collect these elements in your array. So you can run a for loop here and you can keep reading each element in the array from the command line. Okay, one thing here, what if I say here that I have 3 elements in my array, but I provide the value of only 2 elements? So this is an incorrect input. So whenever you will be writing code, you will need to have all these sanity checks in your code which check whether your input is correct or not. So in case the user says, I give you an input where I say that there are 3 elements in the array, but there are actually only 2, or I say that there are 3 elements in the array and I pass 4 elements, it should actually show me that your input is incorrect. So what can we do for that? So we can include a sanity check here. So what will be that sanity check? What 2 things can I compare? So I want to compare that the arguments which you are providing here, the number of arguments you are providing here should actually be syncing with this first argument which you have provided here. So that is, let's say I have 4 elements in the array. I say that there are 4 elements in the array, then what should be my total number of arguments? So what I mean to say here is, assume that the value of this argv1 is 4, right? This implies what should be your args then? So your argv1 is 4, which means I'm saying that there are 4 elements in the arrays. Then what should be the total number of arguments to your program? Is it 5 or is it more? Think about it. So ARGS, what all it will comprise of? ARGS is your total number of arguments, out of which your first argument is your file a.out. Second argument is your argv1, which tells you how many elements are there, and your remaining are the elements which you want to pass in the array. Sorry. So what should be the value of ARGS here? Is it 2? Okay, so let me write it here. So I'm writing an example of a correct input here to your program. So something like /a.out 4 and then 2211. It is a perfectly correct input to your program. So what is the value of argv1 here? The value of argv1 here is 4. And what is the value of args here? The value of args here is 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? Why it is 6? So the value of args will always be this 4, right? Whatever you have given here in argv1, that thing plus 2. Why that plus 2? Because this 4 tells you how many elements are there in the array. So these are those 4 elements. In case you make it 5, there will be one more element here, right? So these 5. So whatever is the number here, so assume it's the number n here. So there should be n arguments after this. So those n arguments and plus these 2 here. So if your argv1 is 4, then your args should be 4 plus 2. In general, if the value in general your args for an array I'm talking should always be argv of 1 plus 2. So please note that we are talking specifically about the case when we are taking an array as an input. It need not always be the case. So you can use this condition here and you can say that if args, in case it is not equal to argv of 1 plus 2, then what you can do is you can say to your user that it is an invalid input and you can have a return statement here. So So the difference between ARGS and ARGV is ARGS simply tells you the number of arguments you have given to this program. So how many arguments you have given to this program. So in this particular case, see, in this case, how many arguments am I giving to the program? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So ARGS is simply an integer which tells you how many arguments are given to the program. So in this case, it is 6. ARGV is an array which stores what are the values of those arguments. So ARGS in this case will be 6 and ARGV in this case will be an array whose 0th element will be ./a.out, first element will be 3, second element will be 1, so on and so forth. So hence what we have done here is, if ARGS, that is your number of arguments you have provided to the main function, it should be equal to ARGV1, which is the number of elements in the array plus 2. So this plus 2, 1 is for the arguments which you are providing here. So your ARGS, see in this case, what is your ARGS? Your ARGS is 1, 2, 5, right? And what is your ARGV1? It is 3. So your ARGS total number of arguments should be equal to this 3 plus 2. Please think about it and let me know if there is any doubt how we are maintaining this correlation between ARGV and ARGS. Okay, so this is how we'll be taking inputs to the programs you will be writing. So for definitely for some initial labs, it's going to be the command line arguments. Please make sure you don't use the scanf functions in your code, because for running all your codes, we'll be using automated system, which will execute your codes with the help of so this is a problem. I can't close the chat box because I need to see the chats. It became bigger all the more. It got locked here. Okay. Okay, so any doubt till now? Okay, you might want to speak up now if you have any doubts. Okay, so this is the way we'll be taking your inputs and outputs to your program. Okay, and also in your output, please ensure that you maintain the formatting. So we'll be giving you certain test cases. We'll be telling you how your output should look like. If in your output, if there is even a difference of one space, it might be calculated as a wrong program. So please make sure that you maintain the exact formatting which we give to you, because again, all that checking is going to be automated. Okay, so we have seen this. Now, your first programming assignment is coding this counterfeit problem. Here, all of you are able to see the presentation, right? A slide which says whose title is from where to start. Can somebody confirm that you are able to see the presentation? Any of you, can you please confirm? Can you just unmute yourself and tell me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So definitely from where do you start? So you will be given the treasure as an array, like I have just shown you. You'll have to perform the relevant sanity checks. I have shown you one sanity check where you should see that whatever I have given is as the array size, my number of elements is also the same. Okay, what can be the another sanity check for this particular program? So one thing we are assuming here is in your input, first of all, it is an array. And second, in your entire input, all the coins have the same weight except the one which is the counterfeit coin. So you also need to check for that. So whenever you are given this array, you need to check that in this array, all the elements carry the same weight and there is exactly one element which is lighter than the remaining. Right? So how can you check for this? So you should be able to do it on your own, but I'll tell you a solution for this. So how can you do that? So for all of your algorithms, I am telling you the pseudo code. I can't show you the exact code because I don't want you to replicate the code in any way. So your case one is, so how do you maintain it? The first element is lighter. So there can be two cases when you give this treasure as an array to your user. The first case can be your counterfeit coin is the first element of your array. That is your A0 is your counterfeit coin, which is lighter than the remaining coins. Your second case is your counterfeit coin is not the first coin, but it is some other coin. So we can include a if else case for both of these. So if your first element is lighter, if your A0 is less than A1, which means that your A0 is your counterfeit coin. So after that, what should happen? All the remaining coins or all the remaining elements in this array should be the same, right? If they are not the same, then your input is incorrect. Is it clear? So you should always stop me when you are not understanding it. Okay. Your second case is your counterfeit coin is not your first coin. So if A0 is not less than A1, then A0 can be equal to A1 or A0 can be greater than A1. So in that case, what you can do, you can keep your A0 in the memory and then, so you store it in a variable. What I mean by keeping it in memory, you just store it as a variable and then you can scan the remaining coins one by one. So if at any point you find an element which is greater than A0, you discard the input. Why? Because A0 is definitely not your counterfeit coin. It is a standard coin. So now all the remaining coins, in all the remaining coins, their value can either be equal to A0 or it can be less than A0 in case it is a counterfeit coin. So if at any point you find an element which is greater than A0, you should say that it's an invalid input. And if at any point you find one element which is less than A0, you know that you have found that lighter element which is the counterfeit coin. All other remaining coins should be equal to this A0 because all of them are the standard coins. So you need to implement this sanity check in your code when you will be solving this problem. Okay. Another thing which we will require for solving this problem is definitely the balance scale. So whatever we are going to do is with the help of this balance scale to which we can give as input left side certain coins, right side certain coins. So you can implement it as a function. Your balance scale can be a function in your code which takes as arguments left side in which you have certain coins and right side in which you have certain coins. Now you should figure out how you can give the input to this balance scale, what kind of a variable it will be. So you will need a variable which represents the left side of it and you need a variable which is the right side of it, and the output of the balance scale is which side is lighter. So you can have it have the output of the balance scale as a variable which can be 0, 1 or -1, all of which mean different things. So 0 might mean that your left and right are equal. 1 might mean that your right side is lighter, -1 might mean your left side is lighter, whichever way you want it. But make sure that all the comparisons you do in your program, they should be based on this balance scale. So at any point, you cannot use the direct weights of these coins. Okay. So our first approach was, so what you can do in your first approach, on the left hand side we fix. So the first left side of the balance coin is fixed and right side you keep changing it. So you will call this balance function how many times? If your array has n elements, you are going to call it n minus 1 times and you are going to tell which is your counterfeit coin. In your second case, which we have discussed, so your first programming question, so this lab which I'm going to give you now, it's having 3 problems. So in the first problem, you need to code the first approach we talked about. Actually not the first, the second approach we talked about where we were pairing the coins. So I keep 2 coins here. Sorry, I keep 1 coin here and 1 coin here. So first coin on the left side, second coin on the right side, compare them. Then I keep third coin on the left side, fourth coin on the right side, and compare them. So that is your first problem. You need to code that. And at every point, you need to print the configuration of this balance scale. That is, what are you really comparing? So you'll see that in your programming assignment. And using this balance scale, at the end you have to figure out which one is your counterfeit coin. What I'm going to do now is, I'll just stop sharing the slides now. I'm going to share your programming assignment document with you right away, probably in the chat window. So take a look at it. If there is any doubt, you ask me. I'm giving you time also. Let's say it's 4:40 now. I'm giving you time till 5. You have a look at it. You think about how you can solve it. If you want, you can also do some coding. And if you have any doubt, you can ask me back and I'll clarify it. Nevertheless, this is a 1 week assignment. So you can take time till next, I think, Tuesday to solve it and submit it. We'll be having all the submissions with a Google Classroom. So you might want to note down this code. You can join this Google Classroom with this code. All the submissions will be made through this Google Classroom. We'll be sharing a link with you. We'll be making a programming assignment link there. You can go there and submit your codes. And also, while submitting your codes, please make sure that you follow all the instructions properly. So what we'll be doing is, your first programming assignment has 3 different questions. So for each question, you are going to have a C file. The naming convention for that C file will be shown to you in the document. After you are done with naming those 3 files accordingly, you need to put it in a folder, and the folder name should be your name underscore your roll number, and then you zip it with your, again, the name of your zip file should be your name followed by your roll number separated with an underscore, and then you submit it. So please do not directly zip your C files. First you make a folder, zip that folder, and then give it to us. So in case you do not do that, your programs might not be evaluated by us. It will be difficult for us. And one thing you need to keep in mind, plagiarism is strictly discouraged. So at any point, if we figured out that your code is taken from the internet or from some of your friend, you'll get a direct F grade in your labs and might be even in your theory course for data structures. And in case you are copying from your friend, so you as well as your friend both will be penalized. So the person who gives the code to other and the person who takes the code, both of you are going to be penalized. Okay, now just give me a minute. I'll share the file here with you. Meanwhile, if you have any doubts, you can think and you can ask me. Okay, all of you will now see a Google Doc link in the chat window. So can you just open this link, go through this programming assignment and ask me if there are any questions. So I'm giving you next 10 to 15 minutes. You can ask any kind of doubt you are having. If you are going to do it with Windows, you can use any Windows compiler. It can be, so Vishal has a doubt. He asked me, he doesn't have Linux. So you can, okay, how can you give you command line inputs with online C compiler? So what you can do is there are a number of ways in which you can download a compiler, even in the case of Windows. So just look at it online and you can go to the command line in Windows and execute your commands there. So you try to do this. If you are not able to do that, I'll help you. So all of you, please make sure that whatever comments you are writing in the chat box are to everyone and not privately to me. You can use any compiler. That's not an issue. You are free to use any compiler of your choice, whichever you find good. The number of arguments in the terminal, including dot slash a dot out, will be stored in the args variable. Yes, that is right. So if it is dot slash a dot out and a 1, so the value of your args will be 2. Okay, Vaibhav, so look at it and you just, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to record this meeting and make it available to all of you. So if you go that portion twice, you need to give it some thinking effort and you will be able to get it. So what I was saying there is, if you have a command, let's say I'm taking an input array. So let's say it is something like this. So I'm just using here certain terms, certain variables just for your understanding. So it's dot slash a dot out followed by n. So n here, wherever you should see it on the chat window. So I'm not typing it on the screen. You should see this on the chat window. So it's dot slash a dot out n. And here is your number of elements in the array followed by k1, k2, k3 up to kn are all your elements. So what I'm saying is, if your uh, since your argv of 1 is n here, right? So how many arguments should proceed this argv1? There will be exactly n arguments which will be after this argv1, each for, so one argument will correspond to one element. So if your argv1 is n, there will be n arguments after this particular argument, which is argv1, and one argument you are having is dot slash a dot out. So your total number of arguments should be n plus 2. So that was what I was talking about. Take some time, think about it, you will get it. It's a simple maths. So when you join this Google Classroom, whose code I have shared with you, I'll make an assignment there, which I haven't yet made it, and I'll share it there on the Google Classroom with you. So you'll get a notification. You can just go to that link and you can submit this assignment. These inputs are given to the main via the OS, right? So that's correct. When you have dot slash a dot out, whatever you enter after that will be given as an input to your main program. I'm giving you 5-10 minutes more to contemplate. Please go through this document in detail and ask me if there is any doubt. Sure, I'll share the recording of this class. So this is the first time I think I'm recording using Zoom. So if the quality will be good, I'll definitely make it an unlisted YouTube video and share it with you. Anirudh, you already have the access to this document. So whatever link I have sent to you, please just store that link and anytime you can open this document with the link. Moreover, I'll also upload a PDF of this document on the Google Classroom where you can access it again. In the code, if we define different input arguments to the main, how does it work? Akshat, can you make your question a bit clearer? What do you mean by different input arguments? You can type or you can even unmute and speak. You can do it in the same way. Assume that you just want to put one integer as an argument. What you can do is just execute your program like this dot slash a dot out one. So your args value will be 1 in your program. I'm sorry, args value will be 2 in your program. So because there are two arguments here, one is dot slash a dot out and other is 1, and you can access the value of this one here with the help of your argv0, because this one will be your first element in your argv0. So in this particular case, let me just write it down here. So your args is true, your argv of 0 here is dot slash a dot out, and your argv of 1 here will be 2. uh, I'm sorry, argv of 1 here will be 1, which you have given as an argument. And please note that this 1 will be in the string format. So if you want to use it as an integer, you will have to use that function a to I. So you might just want to do as argv, so you can do int I equals to a2I of your argv of 1. So this will do. So your integer I will have the argument which you have provided here on the command line. Anirudh, I didn't get what you are asking. You can unmute and tell me what is the line. I'm unable to hear you.
Hello. Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Anil.
Ma'am, the line in the chat, RGS equals to 2 and RGB 0. Could you explain that? Equals to dot slash a dot out. What exactly was that line about? Like,
Um, See, the whole point is what I want all of you to understand is, so whenever you run a code like this, let's say dot slash a dot out, and you are giving as input an array, let's say which is having
2.
two values. First is 90, second is 100. So what is your ARGS? The value of ARGS in this case, what goes into the array? ARGB.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So the value of ARGS in this case will be 4. So whatever, so including this 2 is first argument. So all the arguments are separated by
Yes.
spaces. So there are 4 values here. Each of it is passed as an argument to your program. So the value of ARGS is 4. So ARGS simply holds. So I'm not assigning it a value here. By me writing it here, just I'm telling you that the value of ARGS is 4, which is passed to your main function.
Okay.
And if you want to see these individual values, you can access them with the help of this array ARGV. So ARGV will be an array which will be having 4 elements. So the element at 0th location will be dot slash a dot out. Element at first location will be 2, that at the second location will be 90, and that at the third location will be 100.
Okay. Yes.
Now we want to perform a sanity check. To see whatever you, so if I'm giving an array as an input, so let's say I have written a 2 after dot slash a dot out, so the array should have exactly 2 elements.
Yeah.
Right? So what should be the number of elements after this 2 here? So let's say I have written a n here. So let's say it's a variable n. So if I have a dot slash a dot out and I have an n here, it's just for the simplicity sake to make you understand.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
whatever number you have here, that many arguments should follow it. Right. So if you write a 3 here, there should be 3 arguments after
arguments.
this. If you write a 4 here, there should be 4 arguments after this. Right.
Yeah.
So in that case, what is your total number of arguments? So if you have a 2 here, so your total number of arguments will be 2 plus 2.
2. So that's
If you
4.
write a 3 here, your total number of arguments will be 3
2
plus
plus
2.
3 plus 2.
Because your first argument is dot slash a dot out, second argument is this number, and
And then
remaining arguments are that many elements. So
Okay.
that helps us to maintain this relationship. If you are taking an array as an input, then your ARGV of 1 or let's say your ARGS should always be equal to your ARGB of 1 plus 2
Okay.
in the
Yes.
case of an array. So ARGV1 is your number of elements which are there in the array, and ARGS is your total number of arguments you are passing.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, students, I'm closing off this session. Okay, there's a doubt. Where do we need to submit the assignment, ma'am? So I have already told you there will be a Google Classroom link which I'll share with all of you on the Google Classroom. So I've shown you the code during this session today. So you can go to the Google Classroom, join the classroom with that code, and there soon in a day or two you will see the submission instructions there. You can just go to that link and upload your zip file. Okay, so I'm closing off this session now. If you have any more doubts, you can always email me. And there are, yes, there are TAs for your help and support. So I think the PhD scholar Kapil is assigned for this lab. Kapil, if you are here, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, myself Kapil Kumar. So I'm doing here research as a research scholar. So all your assignments I'll be evaluating. Uh, so yeah, and like we'll be available from 5 to 6:30 in order to clarify your doubts even. Thank you.
Thank you, Kapil. So in case you have doubt, you can approach me or Kapil. So both of us are the instructors for this lab on Google Classroom as well. Okay, so I am closing off this session. Thank you all of you.